Hello and welcome to a bit of a different video for a Friday. Rather than doing another theory video, it was voted on that I would do a video talking and discussing about popular ships involving Kris in Deltarune, and talking about some of the problems that come with shipping a character such as Kris. A quick disclaimer, this video is just speculation of the plot and personal preference. If I or anyone in the comments say something you disagree with, keep it civil, and I will also respond to any comments or questions in the that are civil and don't just attack people. So just be kind. Don't attack people for having a different opinion than you. Alright, Kris shipping. Is it problematic, or is it just when it's mischaracterized? The first important detail is, I think we all have to agree on the fact that Kris and the player are two different people with two different wants and desires. If when shipping Kris with another character, you're characterizing Kris in a way that isn't canon or more similar to how you would act, you are not shipping Kris, you are self-shipping or shipping an OC. I don't think this is that hard to get your head around. It's like, if you don't treat Kris like Kris is treated in the story, then you're not actually shipping the character Kris. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is fine, you can do this. There's nothing stopping you, and I have no issues with doing this. It's only when you try to say that your ship of this fake version of Kris is canon and the only ship that should be allowed. Or even just saying your headcanon of Kris is the correct version and any other version is wrong, especially when that headcanon goes against what's shown within the games. So if you're mischaracterizing Kris and trying to say that you're not, that's when it becomes problematic. If you're to ship Kris without going against canon and without going against their personality, the best way to do so is by checking things like Kris's thoughts on them through dialogue and reactions, and also the teas. The teas are the best way. And sometimes there isn't enough information about this, so if that's the case, then it's better to check the other characters' opinions on Kris and if there's anything you get from that. But just remember, this doesn't mean Kris reciprocate these feelings, so you have to be careful when doing this. Alright, the first ship I want to ask you over today is Krusie. This is, as of right now, the most popular ship. I did a poll on my Twitter and it won, so this is what I'm going with first. It is the most popular, and yeah, no, I understand why. For anyone who doesn't know, this is a ship between Kris and Susie. First of all, this is canon. This ship has been referenced within official Deltarune media, so there is a lot to prove that this ship is canon on at least one side. We don't know what Susie thinks about this, but that's kind of a common thing where Susie never really shows if they're interested. Probably because they don't know how. I think they more so show that they're interested in Noelle, but I think there is stuff you can take that could mean that Susie is interested. And Kris is obviously interested. How interesting this ship is. This basically just means how much this could add to the story, or how much this adds to the characters. And honestly, rating out of 10, 8, it's really good for both Susie and Kris, I think. And it's just an enjoyable ship. And I do ship it, but it's not my main Kris ship. But I do really like it, honestly. So if you ship this one, yeah, no, this is a great one. Go over the canon dimensions of the ship. The story Noelle tells about when, I think it's when Susie has only recently joined. It references Susie going, "Oh, you smell like apples." It takes a big bite out of an apple and then throws it directly at Kris. Kris catches it midair, takes a small bite of it, and then smiles at Susie. Obviously, this is great. I don't know how you could take this as not a ship or a romantic way. Also, Kris gets 120 health from the Susie team, which is, out of the numbers you can get, is the second highest. The only one that's higher is Noelle and the Susie team, which makes sense. Also, Susie points out the fact that Kris is looking at her when they drink the tea. Also, when Susie asks you to go to the festival with, if you say Susie, it's I think Noelle is somewhat negative, but I can't remember that one. But I know that Rouse and ... are negative, but Susie appears to be the most positive, as in when Susie doesn't reference us saying it or Kris saying it weird, meaning that it's most likely the option Kris wanted to say themselves. Alright, and how interesting is this ship? Well, first off, we know Susie has a bad or like no home life at all. And we can see this by the fact that Susie mentions only eating like crumbs from toasters or like leftovers, and also being hungry the whole time, which is why she eats the chalk. But if they end up together, then obviously Toriel and Azriel will accept Susie into like their family, and it'll be just really sweet. It'll honestly just be really nice. For the more interesting one, in my opinion, Kris is clearly showing not to have any control, or not any. Kris has a lack of control over their own actions, and because they're being controlled by the player. But Susie has shown to constantly go against our commands and Kris's commands, so Susie could find out about what's going on with us and try to help Kris gain their own freedom, like Susie's been doing this whole time. Alright, so Krusie, overall, it's not my like number one ship, but it's definitely like number 3. It's like my third favourite ship with Kris. And it does everything I want from a Kris ship right. The only things I have to say about the ship is I personally ship Noelle and Susie more, which is the only reason this is as low as it is. Otherwise, it would be much higher. Like, it's a 9 out of 10 ship. It's like really good. And while I would be disappointed that Suzelle doesn't happen, but I would still be happy with this outcome of the ship. Okay, the next ship I want to go over is the Kerdly ship. This has become a lot more popular recently, and honestly, this is my favourite ship. And I know it's a lot more jokey than those ships. I don't know why I like it so much. It's just fun. Like, out of a lot of the ships having a lot of more like serious aspects to them, I think this one's just a lot of fun. So I like it. As of canon wise, there's hints towards it, but there's nothing to say it is canon or isn't canon. And we don't really know. It could be implied. And it could be implied that Kerdly and Kris both have attractions to each other, but it is like only a small amount of like dialogue saying this. Interesting. This I actually think this should be a 7 out of 10. Now looking back at this, when I wrote this, I thought 8 out of 10, but after doing the rest of them, I think this should be a bit lower. But I still like it, and yes, I do. As I mentioned, I do ship this one. Alright, there's been a lot of moments between these characters in Chapter 2, and also a bit from what we've seen of Chapter 4 that could hint at a relationship between the two characters. Kris is stated to be lost in the craftsmanship of the Kerdly statue, which I'm sure we can all figure out why that could imply some form of like romance. There is dialogue where Kerdly says that they're fellow bluebirds. In the same dialogue, it is said that Kris is very concerned about Kerdly, because I think this is when he hurts his arm. There is Chapter 4 dialogue that's been revealed, that has been assumed to be Bardley asking Kris to the festival. And also just Kris giving the present to Bardley. It's the only time the present gets opened on screen. Also, it's the only present that has extra details on it. Okay, how interesting is it? They are very similar, honestly. They have a lot of stuff, like obviously the whole blue bard thing, but I think they also have a very similar like sadness with their parents, because Kris is obviously sad about what happened between Tori and Asgore, and Bardley, it has been theorized, has a bad home life just because of the way Queen treats him. With Queen acting like a parental figure to Noelle, it could also apply to Bardley. Alright, and also, the thing that I think actually makes this super interesting is the weird route, as it makes the weird route even worse than it already was, because it puts the context in that Kris really likes Bardley, but is being forced to kill them, and also being forced to like have romantic interactions with someone who they don't like. And it's not, honestly, this is very like toxic, but it's got a lot of good acts. I like it. It's good. I think this is a really cool take. Overall, I think this is my favorite ship. Just, it's silly, it's dumb, it has got the potential for like more serious stuff, and the Krusie ship does have more going on, but I don't know, I just like the dynamic more of the ship. 10 out of 10. I would be overjoyed if this one actually happened. Okay, Kriselle is the next one to go over. This was the second most popular ship from the poll, and it's weird. By the way, this is Noelle and Kris, and it is weird because I find this ship to be the most and least interesting out of all of the Kris ones. It also is canon, but also not being canon at all. And it's out of character while making sense within the universe. Like, this ship is literally on both sides of the spectrum of good and bad at the same time. The reasoning is that this ship is actually two ships, being the Snowgrave version and the normal version of Kriselle. First, I'm going to go over Kriselle like normal route, because that one is the easiest. It isn't canon. They are very clearly platonic. They're not that interesting, and I don't ship it. Before, okay, I realize this seems quite like hands-on, like this will never happen. I do understand the ship. I do understand why people ship it, because they are fun together, they have a fun dynamic, but I've never seen any line of dialogue that has ever made me think more than just childhood friends with like shared trauma. And if you disagree, that's fine. Honestly, they're both fun characters, and I wouldn't hate them ending up together. And whilst I'm here, I want to bring up, I forget the name, hang on, let me check the name. Alright, so there's this ship called Kralsai, which honestly, to be honest, bad name. But it's Kris, Susie, and Noelle. And honestly, this one works. This one like fixes my main problem with Krusie, being the fact that Noelle has made it very clear they like Susie, and it just feel mean for them not to end up together. So this ship fixes that, and honestly is my second favorite ship. The only reason this ship and other polyamorous ships aren't on this list is because this video is already long enough without the extra depth of ships. But just know, I know of them, and I do actually really like a lot of them. And I think it's a lot more interesting than this ship, because I think the character dynamics actually bounce off each other better than just Kris and Noelle. Anyway, the only canon mention, it's not even like a mention, it's more like a way you could infer dialogue. It's when Noelle is talking about the fact that she likes scary things. You could link that to the fact that Noelle talks about how Kris always used to scare her when she was little. But the only problem with this is I feel like it's implied that Noelle started liking scary things because it reminds her of Des. So that would mean it would happen after Des went missing. And I thought like all the mentions we had of Kris doing this to Noelle would be before Des went missing. I might be wrong, but that's just the way I've like read between the lines. If you enjoy the childhood friend dynamic, and which I personally don't, the ship is good. The ship works well. But other than that, I don't really feel like there's anything else going on with the ship. I think their personalities do mesh well, but just doesn't feel like anything more than platonic. And I don't dislike the ship, and I don't think it's bad. I'm just not interested in it at all. So, but if you like it, then that's fair enough. I see why. It's just a cute ship. Okay, moving on to the weird room. It is canon. I don't know how many sides the ship has, honestly. It's weird. It's really weird. It is very interesting. It is the most interesting ship on this list. And I don't not ship it. It's like, I don't want them to end up together, but I also find the ship so interesting that I do enjoy it. Because it is angsty, and also there's so many well-made comics about this that are so good, and I really like it. I just don't want it to be, you know, like the final ship in any way. Okay, all of the canon mentions are held within the weird route or snow route. It's stuff like you telling Noelle that you will go on the Ferris wheel with her. The fact Noelle says that Kris is scaring her, obviously linking to like what she says to Susie. There's a lot of references to LV, like number 55 levels, which kind of links back to Undertale with love. Something says we've been making love, and also all of the rings and the salesmen have a lot of like marriage imagery. It's very interesting. Don't want it's toxic. It's like, without a doubt, toxic. Because it goes and uses the trauma of both characters against them. With Noelle, it's like using their fear and the love of fear against them in the worst way possible. While Susie's that, but in a healthy way. Also, it uses Kris, who is shown to like not want to be under control of the pair, being forced to make Noelle or take control of Noelle, which obviously Kris knows how bad it feels and wouldn't ever want to do that to someone else. And to go into more detail about that, it's very obvious that Kris does not want to do any of this, and yet we are like physically making them, and it's just another time in the game. Any time in the game where the game specifically shows us Kris and the player wanting two different things, and Kris not wanting to go with what the player says but having to, it's always really interesting. So I just like this ship because it messes with that idea. Overall, for Kriselle, it isn't my favourite ship, and I don't really care about it in the normal route, but the weird route is very interesting, although it is quite uncomfortable. I give it a 6 out of 10. It's fine. It's good, but like, it's just not my exact cup of tea. Okay, this is gonna be the shortest one because I want to talk about this one because I know it is a thing, but I think it's going to become more popular in Chapter 4 when we assumedly get to spend time with Kratti. It's hinted at. Like, yeah, no, it's interesting. It is interesting. I don't personally ship it. Nothing against the ship. I just don't know enough about Kratti to have an opinion on this yet. They are childhood friends who used to do occult stuff together, and Kris, you know, obviously wants to learn magic, shown by a lot of the game. But other than that, we don't know enough about their past to like really say anything. But I see why it is shipped. It does make sense, and I hope we get more of the relationship shown in Chapter 4. Alright, so before I actually get into this part, I want to put another disclaimer that, again, video speculation, like, none of this is confirmed. This is my speculation and my preferences. Also, before you comment about your opinions, let me finish, like, my whole point. Let me get to the end of talking about this next ship. Or, actually, let me get to the end of the video. Just let me get to the end, and then any points or any, like, things you have to say, then you can say it, and I will reply to anything, as long as you are respectful, honestly. Also, yeah, just don't attack anyone. Even if someone disagrees with, like, if anyone disagrees with me, I don't care, that's the point of a discussion. So don't attack anyone for any reason, obviously. I don't think I have to say this, but, you know, it's shipping. It gets weird. Gets ugly. Okay, this is probably the ship that, if you clicked on this video, you more than likely did it because this ship was referenced in the thumbnail, or because you knew this ship would come up. And I understand why. And honestly, the majority of you probably did that because you don't like the ship, based on polls I've done recently. But I am nervous about the ship. But let's get into it, Okay, first of all, I like to bring up, this is canon. This is something the game shows us as a ship that could happen. This is important. I want to make that clear. I do know that this is canon. I don't think it is two-sided. I generally think this is a one-sided ship. And I also think it's very interesting. And also, I thought I should put out there, I personally do not ship this. Okay, nothing inherently wrong if you do. Honestly, we'll get into that in a minute. Okay, first, let's go over times this is brought up in canon. There are quite a few times this is brought up, but I want to mention the fact any of these times are always initiated by either Kralsai, the player, or just like the scenery / environment. And it's never, from what we've seen, Kris is doing. Or at least from what I can remember from like my few playthroughs I've done recently. Okay, the examples are the fact that you can make Kris hug or stand near Kralsai, which will always make him blush. Kralsai having a high HP gain from the Kris team, which is 120, I believe. The whole acid tunnel of love section, obviously. Kralsai offers Kris a cake after Spamton if you make Kris say that they are uncomfortable. And Kralsai asking Kris if certain clothing looks nice on him. These aren't all of them. I like to make that clear, these are all of them, but these are like the big 5 in my opinion. I'm sure I've missed a bunch. If I've missed a bunch, and actually just don't miss anything in this video. Just like let me know in the comments, and then I don't know. At some point, I might make a part 2. Maybe I'll go over some more of the ships I didn't mention, like the polyamorous ones. But okay, I think it's clear that Kralsai is probably one of the most heated ships because nobody can agree on anything anymore. So, I'm going to actually spend a lot of time on the ship, going over all of my opinions on it, just because it's kind of come back recently. First of all, for anyone who's new, or just wants to recap, here's like, how, like, Kralsai has, like, started, what happened to it, and where it is now, and trust me, this is actually way more interesting than I thought it would be. Okay, 2019 to 2021. Kralsai was the most popular ship in the whole community. This is from... Actually, wait, no, it's 2018. I forgot when... Wait, when did Deltarune come out? Okay, Deltarune Chapter 1 released in 2021. It was the most popular. Everyone loved it. It was more popular than Krusie. Most of the ships for Chapter 2 didn't exist yet. And everyone loved it. It was pretty much loved by everyone. I think at the time, even I, enjoyed the ship a bit. But then, during 2021 and a bit of 2022, Chapter 2 came out, and people started discussing Kralsai and if it's problematic, and whether or not we should be worried about the connection to Azriel. Which is a fair enough concern. Then 2022 to 2023, the discussions kind of came to like a finish with most people in the community, and for what I thought, everyone in the community agreed that this was kind of too weird, and this ship went from the most popular straight down to the least popular. So that was kind of the death of Kralsai. Then, during 2023 onwards, like everyone kind of stopped talking about Kralsai because everyone assumed that it was done. But obviously, Undertale and Deltarune community was still growing, so people came into the community without knowing about this big whole discussion that happened the year before or years prior. And then as of this year, because of this, there's a lot more people who are like supporting Kralsai. And the thing is, some of them were from the original Kralsai group, and they remember the fact that last time a big discussion started about it, Kralsai stopped being popular. So now, from what I've seen on Twitter, I'm not gonna show the post because I don't want any harassment to these people, obviously. But I've like had a lot of stuff on my Twitter where I've been like debating with people, so go there if you want more information. But a lot of people don't want to have any more discourse about Kralsai, and it's a lot harder to debate than it was in 2023, from my experience. So the ship came back from the dead, like, which is impressive because I've never seen a ship really do that, the scale that Kralsai has done. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up in a longer form here, because I want not to like set in stone the answer, but more to bring back all the points against Kralsai to then reignite the discussion, hopefully. And remember, don't harass people for different opinions. I know I've said it like 20 times, but it's shipping. Okay, first of all, let's go over the parallels and the fact that Kralsai and Azriel do look alike, even though that seemed to be disagreed with by some people in the community, which is crazy because it was just kind of the one thing that everyone agreed on at one point. But we'll get to that. First of all, Azriel, Kralsai, anagram. Easy, everyone knows this. Kralsai is shown quoting Flowey, who, if you somehow don't know, is Azriel. Oh yeah. And also, they hold a similar role to Toriel in Undertale, with Flowey being like, oh, in this world it's kill or be killed, but then Toriel coming in and be like, no, you can actually spare people. And then Susie says your choices don't matter. And then Kralsai comes in and says your choices do matter. So we have the same role, the same like dreamer role of like taking you and going like, oh no, you actually do have a choice here, which I think is an interesting connection. It's less obvious than the Flowey Azriel connection, but I still think it's interesting to bring up. As for looks, first of all, the Noelle line of it kind of looks like after saying who's that person she's with anyway. I know that people disagree with this, and I know why people disagree with this. I have some stuff to disprove the debate around this and say that this is implying that Noelle is talking about Asriel, but that's on the next slide, so just be patient for a second. But even without that line, Kralsai does just look like Asriel with a better art style, and not in a way that they're both goats, okay? It's not because they're both goats, it's because they look the same. First of all, there's like a lot of features that look similar. I mentioned the nose there. I don't know why I do that, because that just seems to be a goat thing. But like, they have the same mouth, except for like a better art style. The eyebrows in these two images are literally doing the exact same thing. And if you don't know genetics and like looking the same, eyebrows do vary a lot. But both of them have a hair puff. I do want to point out the fact that Kralsai's is different. And that makes sense because they are different characters. They just are meant to resemble each other. And I think the most important thing is, number one, Toriel and Asgore, who are both goats, don't have any hair puff. So hair puffs aren't just a goat thing. Also, Asriel Dreamer boss fight is the closest thing we have to an older version of Asriel. And if you look at the horns, they curve outwards, while Toriel's curves inwards. This shows that different goats have different horn types, and yet both Kralsai and Asriel have the exact same horn shapes. So they have a lot of similarities, and I think that's important. Also, if Asriel appears and is wearing glasses now, then that's just... I thought like that's just a nail in the coffin there. But moving on, a lot of people would disagree with the Noelle line, but if in the Japanese translation, the line it kind of looks like becomes that person's appearance is somehow, which is a lot more obvious. Because like saying that person, specifically pointing out, obviously this comes after talking about Kralsai, going that person and talking about their appearance, then add on to the English line saying it's similar to, it very much so paints this picture of Kralsai is comparing the way, Noelle was comparing the way Kralsai looks to somebody, and the only person who that really could be is Asriel, considering the fact that Noelle is obviously like known to hang out with Asriel, Kris, and Des when they were younger. Also, the Japanese translations are always good evidence, especially considering the fact that in Undertale, it was used to find out details like Sans being the older brother. So this is valid information to be able to use to prove the fact that Noelle is talking about the appearance of Kralsai, and not just trying to say, oh, it looks like they're on a date. Okay, this is a big one, but Kris has, like, very clear no romantic interest in Kralsai. The two big ones I want to bring up, there's way more, but these are just the two I like. These are the big two, and also like a bit of a weird one, but I still think it's interesting. First of all, the teas. Kris, when drinking Noelle's tea, gets 70. Most likely meaning they like Noelle, but like there's nothing more than that. They like Noelle. They literally say, do they like it? They're drinking it, showing the fact that Kris is fine. Like, this is like positive neutral. Then with Susie's tea, as mentioned before, is 120. Kralsai even says they seem into it, which is a weird line, actually, now I'm reading it. But, you know. But when Kris drinks, also running Kris drinking their own tea is the same as anyone drinking their own tea, which is only 10 HP. But when Kris drinks Kralsai's tea, they only get 60, and Krusie literally says they have no reaction. And before anyone says, I know a lot of people say, oh, they've only just met. It makes sense that Kris doesn't have that many things yet. Krusie gets, I think, 120 health from Kralsai, and they've known each other for just as long. Technically less time, if you think about it, because Krusie runs off right after meeting Kralsai for a while. So Kris and Kralsai have had way more time to bond, and yet Kris has shown they don't really care. Also, if you try to make Kris say that they would want to go to the festival with Kralsai, Krusie points out the fact that you're saying it confused. This shows the fact that Kris doesn't even see Kralsai as a romantic option, which is kind of weird actually now I think about it, because it is kind of pushed and there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if Kris just... I guess Kris wouldn't even think about it, because to Kris this is just like a weird version of of their brother. And the final thing I want to point out is in the trailer, Kris is going to be super affectionate to Krusie in the animation, but not really care about Kralsai. Also, when Krusie appears, it says a story about friendship, which obviously is like, oh, Krusie and Kris are friends. But when Kralsai shows up, the line becomes Undertale's parallel story, which could link to the fact that Kralsai is a parallel to Asriel. I know this is a bit of a stretch, but I thought it was interesting. Okay, this is speculation. This is just mainly speculation, honestly. But I'd recommend going and watching this video that I think I've referenced like in my last 2 theories, but it's fine. It's a good video, and it works with all my theories somehow. But this one, all I'm really trying to say here is that Kralsai shows more care towards what the player wants than what Kris themselves wants. As Kralsai very clearly knows about the player and what they're doing to Kris, and yet they never seem to like point out the fact like, oh, I know what Kris actually means by stuff, even when Krusie, who doesn't know about the player, can tell, thinking that Kralsai knows that something's wrong with Kris. But because the player says there's nothing, Kralsai's like, okay, let's move on, because they want to make us happy. I'm not saying Kralsai is evil, or like anything near that, or nor that they're a bad person, just that they prioritize us, the player, most likely because we are the one who are fulfilling the prophecy. So, I understand why. It just means that they wouldn't be healthy for each other. Also, there's a big theory about Kralsai being the vessel. Go watch that video. I might link it in the description. It's a video in the corner. Go watch it. It's really good, genuinely. Okay, I want to bring up the biggest piece of evidence that Kralsai shippers use is the existence of the acid tunnel of love. And the fact that Toby Fox wouldn't include the option to pursue Kralsai if it was bad or a wrong thing to do. And I don't get this. I genuinely don't get this. Like, Toby has never shied away from letting us pick the wrong choice. Snowgrave is a perfect example of what this ship is. Because this ship is Snowgrave on the normal route, where in Snowgrave we do stuff against Kris's will, and it's very obviously shown to be bad. While this, it's against Kris's will, but it's more subtly bad, because Kralsai is okay with it, But in Snowgrave, both of them are not okay with it. And based on everything we've seen so far, I think it's more likely that Toby is doing a meta-narrative on shipping itself, talking about how fandoms tend to like ignore the actual characters when shipping. And I think it would be a really fun idea. And also, I'll say, I like the base of the ship. Like, the main idea that's shown in the game of the ship, I enjoy. Because I think it's good. I just don't like how people just treat it as this, like, oh, super cute, like fine and lovey-dovey relationship. When it is just another example of Kris not getting what they want. Because the player wants something else. Okay, let's go. How interesting is this? I've already mentioned this a bit, but I like the ship, but I don't like how it's being shipped more like a self-insert OC and Kralsai rather than Kris and Kralsai. I have nothing wrong with doing that ship, but it's a fact that so many people are trying to say that that version of the ship is canon, when it's very clear that the canon version of the ship is supposed to be something that Kris doesn't like, or Kris doesn't really care about. Like, it isn't the thing of Kris hates this, it's the thing of Kris doesn't want it, but it hasn't gotten to the point yet where Kris has to like react negatively. It's not like we have directly asked Kralsai out or anything. I think this is generally a really fascinating example of Kris and the player's wills being different. But I wish people focus on that dynamic more, rather than just them being cute together. I've also mentioned this, I'm gonna have to give the ship as it stands right now a 0 out of 10, because it goes against the source material, while trying to pose as if it is in the source material, which is what I have a problem with. If people shipped the way they do, but said, oh, this isn't actually how it is, I'd be fine. There'd be no issue with this, because... And also, if more people shipped it the way it's shown in the game, where Kris is against it, the player's making them, and Kralsai's none the wiser. Well, not none the wiser, but doesn't realise Kris doesn't like it. I would want that. Please, can someone do that? That would be so cool. Rather than just this, like, kind of nothing ship, which just, like... It's just nothing special compared to every other ship. It's like Susie and Kris, even Noelle and Kris, Kerdly, all have so much more, like, have just as much, like, potential to be cute, but then have just depth to the cuteness. While this one, it's either you have it be cute, or you have it have depth. And you can't have both, and it's led to people just only not having depth. And I'm not really for it. Also, these more Snowgrave versions of the ship, because that's interesting, that's cool to me. Okay, also, a lot of people try to say that the arguments of Kralsai is like the main issue in the community. This isn't true by any means, and I'm going to tell you what the actual main issue is. There is a ship that exists, isn't canon, there's never any way to perceive this as canon, nor should there be, and it is bad. Like, no matter how much you dislike Kralsai, and how much you hate it, Kralsai is always implied with what the ship I'm about to say is just bad. Like, generally, there's no redeeming qualities about the ship. It's bad, and okay, I'm just gonna... It's pro-shipping, and it's Kris and Toriel. Some of you might know what I'm about to bring up, and I'm sorry for bringing this memory back to you, but yes, people do ship and defend Kris and Toriel, and there is a very infamous art that I found while researching this video. I searched up Kris ships saw a post that's on Reddit saying, "Oh, this is my new favorite Kris ship." I clicked play on the video and I regret it. A lot of you probably know what I'm talking about. Don't go find it. I went to check just to like talk about how bad it is, and it's gone. So luckily the post's been taken down. But this is bad. No matter what you've agreed or disagreed with in this video, we can all agree this is bad, please. It's all just like, forget all of the other ship stuff and just go, this is bad, and all be happy. And that's it. That's all I have. There's definitely more Kris ships, but I just don't really know them. So if you have any ones I haven't mentioned, also I know there's more bad ones, but that was just the worst one. Like, there is Kris X Lancer, which I don't like. But other than that, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe. I probably won't do another ship video unless people really want it, because this is going to cause drama, because it always does. But just know that if you ship something that I disliked, then that's fine, and I can accept the fact that people have different opinions. Let's all just come together and agree that the only actual bad ship I mentioned today was Toriel.